Okay, it looks like we are on the air, so we can get started. First of all, what a turnout. Thank you so much. Newburyport always comes out, right? So this is so great. We have so many residents here today. Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, I am Sean Reardon. I'm the mayor of the city of Newburyport, and I've been in this position since January 3rd, I believe. So yeah, a little bit 9 months through my first term. So, you know, throughout this term, there's been a number of challenges to address, but few are as important as what we're going to be talking about here today, which is the rising costs of energy. You know, we've been happy to see prices fall and stabilize a little bit at the gas pumps, but everybody here has seen and has been affected by the effects of inflation, global instability, and the supply chain challenges that we're having currently. National Grid's recent announcement that rates will rise substantially affects absolutely everyone here in Newburyport, and I'm glad that they have agreed to come here today and address what this means. First, I want to thank NCM Hub, who is recording this presentation today. So we're not live right now, but you can pass this along to your friends and neighbors that this will be recorded and then be posted not only on the city website, but it'll be on the Port Media YouTube channel as well. I want to thank Paula Burke and the Council of Aging for hosting us and for all they do for our senior population. I want to express my appreciation to Molly Ettenborough, the city's sustainability manager, and the city's Energy Advisory Committee for all their relentless work on this issue and for putting us in a position to offer some alternatives for the city, which will be discussed more today. Just real quickly, is there anyone here from the Energy Advisory Committee? This is a volunteer group. If they could stand up or raise their hand just so people know who they are, and maybe just a quick little round of applause. I mean, they actually are your advocates. These are the volunteers that show up on a regular basis and work on some of these important issues. And I also want to thank our guests from National Grid, Colonial Power Group, and the Mass Save representatives who will be able to talk through the situation and what's next for the city. With this many changes going on, communication, like everything in the city, is absolutely essential. We always have to be clearly communicating to our residents. I highly recommend, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the city's updates through our website. This is a great way to get constant updates directly from the city. Follow the city on social media. The city has a page, the City of Newburyport page on Facebook or other social media platforms. We also have Instagram, and also I have a page, Mayor Sean Reardon, if you're not following that already. I would encourage to do that because we are constantly sending information out to residents that way. And also you can just reach out to City Hall with any of your questions. I think most people know I offer office hours each month, the last Thursday and Friday, consecutive days. So next week on Thursday and Friday will be my 2 days this month. So that's 6 to 7 p.m. on Thursday and then 8 to 10 a.m. on Friday. But again, you don't always need an appointment either. If you have a question, please reach out. If I have the time, I will make the time to talk to you and work through some of these challenges that we're going through right now. But please in touch. We're going to work together. This is a very challenging situation. And again, this is everyone in Newburyport is going to be affected by this, so we have to come up with creative solutions and be there for our residents. So that's it for me. Now to the main event. So thanks again for National Grid. I'm going to hand it over to Joe Mercado.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their day today to hear us on this important topic. Thank you to Mayor Reardon, Molly Ettenborough, and Paula Burke for helping us host this event here at the Senior Center. It's a beautiful facility. I guess to speak candidly, the rate increase that we're about to experience November 1st is somewhat unprecedented. You know, I've been with the company for 15 years, and this is really, supply rates are going to be about double what the highest has ever been in the time I've been with the company. The goal of today's conversation is to try to help you understand some of the fundamentals of the energy industry and how we bill you for your usage and why this is happening, along with some things you can do to help mitigate the impact. So in 1997, the state of Massachusetts deregulated the utility industry. What that means is a distribution electric company like National Grid can no longer be in the production or generation of the electricity you use. So the electricity you use or you consume is actually generated by independent licensed suppliers. And you have the ability, everybody in this room has the ability to purchase supply directly from those suppliers. If you choose not to buy your supply, we have to buy it for you, which I'll get into in a little bit. The supply portion of your bill is what you're paying for the actual electricity you consume. You'll see it if you look at your National Grid bill. It's on the second page typically. It'll say supply. It might say basic service fixed. It might say, Constellation Energy or another supplier if you have one. So that portion of your bill is specifically supply. There's also a charge on your bill for transmission, which actually goes to operate and maintain the infrastructure that takes the power from the generation facilities to our local distribution delivery system, so our local power substations. The third portion of your bill is the delivery piece. Now, this is what we consider our base distribution rates. This is actually how we run and operate our business. So this includes things like vegetation management, storm response, all of the salaries of the employees, as well as our profit. And then the final piece is what I call public policy, and these are state or federal programs that are funded through surcharges on customers' electric bills. These are things like mass save, energy efficiency, EV charging infrastructure, renewable energy mandates, and there's a separate charge on your bill for those programs. However, we do not profit. We just actually administer the program. So we collect the funds and then disperse them to applicants that are qualified. So what I mentioned before is, what do we do if someone doesn't choose their own supplier? So as I mentioned, in 1997, the state of Massachusetts mandated that National Grid no longer generate any power for its customers. The idea being there's a competitive wholesale marketplace that people could go to on their behalf, or a town could aggregate for them. They could purchase directly. However, that left a hole, and that hole was, what happens if someone chooses not to go purchase their own electricity? How do we handle that? Maybe they're unwilling to make that choice, or maybe they don't know enough about the markets. The state of Massachusetts in 2003 firmed up rules about how utilities should handle this problem. So how should we buy power on behalf of customers who don't buy their own? And what they created is our basic service rate. Now, this is the rate that actually is going up on November 1st. We do not profit on this rate. However, the way that we calculate it or come about it is strictly mandated by the state, where we're required to purchase electricity and gas in 6-month blocks. The dates that we're required to purchase for are mandated as well. So for our business, November 1st to April 30th, May 1st to October 30th are the 2 blocks of time. So we don't have flexibility to go out and maybe play the futures market or go out and buy a longer block of time. We have to purchase power in these 6-month increments. Unfortunately, for us, this puts us at a historically bad time to purchase power for the next 6 months, which I'll get into in a second. So this is a breakdown of what typical Massachusetts residential electric customers' bill looks like today. So I broke it down in the same order that I had on that last slide with the power station and everything else. But the supply charge, I have it in 2 ways here, per kilowatt hour and per dollar. So for every dollar that you spend on your current electric bill, roughly 42.5 cents or 42.41 cents of that is supply. For transmission, which is going to be to get that power from the stations to our system, is about almost 4 cents, or roughly 14% of a dollar. So 14 cents for every dollar that you spend on your electric bill. That base distribution or delivery portion, which again is what we run our business on, which is how we make our profits, is 33 roughly percent of your every dollar that you spend, or almost 9 cents per kilowatt hour. And the last one is those public policy programs, so things like mass save, energy efficiency, EV programs, renewables. That's roughly 10% for every dollar that you spend.
Doesn't National Grid own some of the transmission facilities, that center portion?
So
On that?
those are considered completely separate entities as a National Grid, the distribution company.
The distribution, but the National Grid, the corporation, does benefit from the ownership of that.
We do own transmission facilities as subsidiaries of National Grid. However, it's considered a separate entity as myself. I'm part of the distribution company. So yes, we do own transmission infrastructure along with Eversource and other companies, but it's considered separate. That charge is actually federally regulated through FERC. but we do, yes, own a portion of that. And as I mentioned, the last charge is smart, EV, and renewables. Now, as of November 1st, that's going to change. So you see before that roughly 28 cents now jumps to almost 50 cents per kilowatt hour. The only thing that changed on this slide is the supply charge. So when we went out to bid the competitive marketplace for that 6-month window of time, what they came back with, the acceptable bids, were 33 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, to get into the weeds, that's actually a fixed rate. So there are months where it's higher than that. There are months where it's lower than that. That's a cumulative average of the price that we were given for each month. But that would be what you would pay if you're on our basic service. So if you have not chosen your own supplier, or the city or your town has not aggregated on your behalf, from November 1st until April 30th, that would be your supply portion. Now, why did this happen? Mayor Reardon hinted at it previously in his opening remarks. Almost all of this is tied to natural gas prices in this region. So most of the electricity we consume is generated with natural gas, roughly 60%. But there is also a capacity constraint on natural gas in this region. So on the coldest days of the year in January, when everybody here that has gas heat turns their heat all the way up, the power plants get kind of the leftovers and they compete for it. If you look at ISO New England last year, 12% of the electricity roughly in January was actually generated with oil. And if you look at the oil prices currently, if you heat with oil heat, I know I paid over $5 a gallon when I got oil delivered to my home. So those, along with high inflation, have resulted in these charges going up dramatically. But again, this is not National Grid making this price. This is us going out during the time period that we're required to go out and purchase for, asking for bids from all the competitive suppliers and saying, how much would it cost to power for this amount of power? And this is unfortunately the price that they came back with. That doesn't take away from the pain or the burden it's going to have on people, and I understand that, but there is also a limitation on what we're able to do as your distribution utility. Now, what can you do about it? So the first thing, obviously, there's 3 buckets here. You can kind of manage your own energy bill. As I mentioned before, you can shop for a competitive supplier, and I think Molly's going to have someone speak on that more today. But I will say, if you do that, we can't advocate who you should choose, but just read the fine print and make sure you look, is the rate that you're getting locked in, is it variable? Are you automatically renewed at the end of the term? How long is the term? How much is there a charge to cancel if you do? Those are all important things to consider. We have something that's called the balanced billing plan. So if you have electric heat or maybe air conditioning and your bill goes up dramatically during one part of the year and down during the rest, you can spread your usage out over the course of the whole year. You never pay more than you actually use, so we do settle with you if you choose that option. And we also have discounted rates. Those are tied to eligibility for state or federal programs typically. So if you are enrolled in a program, you are eligible to get a discount on your electric or gas bill. So please, we do have people set up outside that you can talk to directly about your bill if you think you're eligible or if you have questions or concerns about that. You can also use some of the programs I mentioned before for energy efficiency. There's great incentives for those programs when it comes to insulation or weatherization. I encourage each and every one of you, if you haven't, make sure you do get an energy audit, and then take a serious look at what they tell you could help benefit, reduce some of the power in your home. Those programs are, like I said, incentivized or paid for out of your electric bill, and if you haven't used them, it's definitely something that you should take advantage of. Lastly, we have a whole array of different customer assistant options. So as a company, we've pledged an additional $17 million of shareholder money, not ratepayer money, to go to local nonprofits and fuel assistance agencies to help people who are struggling with these increases. We also have payment arrangements that are available to these customers or any customer if you fall behind. I would say don't hesitate to call us. You know, I started my career at customer service, and I know it can be a difficult call. You say, I'm struggling to meet these costs, but the people there do want to help. You know, and I think either reach out to me directly, I'll have my cards here, or reach out to one of the team that's going to be outside, or call National Grid, which is 322-3223. And we're happy to discuss this and try to help you figure out ways that you can potentially manage some of these increases. Now, I think that was my last slide, so I will jump to questions, and I do at least see one back there, and I think we have a microphone.
Hello. This is my Phil Donahue moment right now.
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if he's fine, if he wants to ask his question, that's fine.
Oh, wait. Hi, I want to ask you a question. I am on different supplier.
Okay.
We have everything electric in our condo. And I've been reading in the papers that Amesbury town was able to negotiate some kind of with another supplier for the whole city. And then they're saying this, that people who are done getting their supply from National Grid not qualified for that.
Okay.
So if Newburyport potentially, they say in January, maybe we'll be negotiating with somebody, what do we do?
So
I'm
that-
with Constellation. It's not good. It used to be $10.95, now jumped to $17.95. My January bill last year was $482. This year I'm looking for $1,000 for my electric bill. So what happened to people like this? We're not
Okay.
going to be qualified for this?
So the specifics of that question would really be for Molly, but I will say most of those programs they're opt-out programs. So typically, when a city aggregates their electric usage, they buy on behalf of everybody who chooses not to opt out. But I think what happens is if you are already enrolled in a contract, you may automatically be opt-out of that program. So I don't know if Molly wants to take that.
Sure, I can help you address that. As soon as we're done with National Grid, Colonial Power, who is our aggregator, is going to be talking about the program, so we can answer all your questions regarding aggregation at that time.
Well, wait a minute. One more question. You know, we receive our electric bill, and it says over there, oh, you know, you can get help. So we're looking at that piece of paper. We're not qualified for anything. We are not on low income. We're not on high income. We're just simply middle class who paid for everything and for everybody. So how about helping people who real middle class? I mean, thank you.
I do appreciate the comments.
A microphone. Just on the first block there, global energy crisis fueled by the war in Iraq.
In Ukraine.
Ukraine. The thing is that the pipes have been in the ground for years, and are we now importing the natural gas from overseas? If that's the case, I can understand why the price is going up. Why is it going up when most all natural gas has gone up this continent?
So it's actually the opposite. So the energy crisis in Europe has increased the export of LNG to those areas. So we do rely on liquefied natural gas to subsidize our natural gas pipelines and capacity here. And the thing with those systems, A, they're expensive, but B, they can choose to go anywhere in the world. They're not tied to a specific harbor, and they go to who is willing to pay the most. And now areas in Europe who are also in an energy constraint environment are taking some of that LNG capacity. So it's not that we're buying from them, it's just now with all the sanctions on Russia and with the energy industry, now we're competing for a smaller pool of resources, and that price is going up. Now, I'm not an economist, so I don't want to say that's a pretty high-level answer there, but it's more related to just competing for the resources that we've traditionally had easier access to.
Another question over here? And just try to speak right into the mic because we are trying to record it, so you actually have to use the mic, otherwise the computer won't pick it up.
Following up on this gentleman's point, the natural gas that you indicated is the primary source of electricity by National Grid here in New England is natural gas that is available in North America, and I presume relatively close to where we are located now. I understand your point that globally there is greater demand for the resources that are available because of what's going on in the Ukraine. But I don't believe that the natural gas here, close to our area, is being shipped over there.
So
I don't know of pipelines that go fully under the Atlantic Ocean.
They
So
don't.
if that's not the case,
So they don't.
why are our rates going up so much?
So we have had a natural gas capacity issue for many years in this region. I don't know if everyone remembers, about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a Kinder Morgan pipeline that was proposed to end and Drake it. That pipeline was basically, they abandoned the project. They said it wasn't going to be a viable option based on the public opposition. There's a compression station in Weymouth that's had a lot of opposition that involves getting this gas from the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania to our region. Unfortunately, there's only a limited amount of pipeline that we have in the region now, and all the efforts that have been made to really expand it drastically have been shut down, usually from an environmental opposition. So there is a fallout from that, right? Where now we're at the point where there's more and more people using natural gas than there were even 5 years ago. And now there's less LNG available because it's been shipped other places. And we've already been at a constraint. Last year, like I said, those electric stations that normally burn natural gas right now, in January, they might have to burn oil or even coal. And there's an economic consequence. Now, what I do want to point out is that this is not, National Grid does not generate the electricity. We don't generate the natural gas. We only purchase it for your behalf to run in our system. So these high-level consequences, these are really questions that the generators would have to answer, or ISO New England, which they are the independent system operator of New England. They kind of manage this whole wholesale process. They're great questions. But it's just, we're limited based on the rules in place on how we purchase this supply, and this is the price that's unfortunately come from that.
All right, any more questions? I know I got one over here.
Hi, my name's Gary Roy. To put this gas thing to bed, I think, first of all, the United States, this isn't for you really, is a surplus producer of natural gas. What does that mean? It means that we do not consume 100% of the natural gas that is produced in this country. It is sold overseas. I think the number is around 10% right now. And why is it sold overseas? Because the oil companies, the people that produce the stuff, are making huge amounts of money on the natural gas, more so than they make here. That's number one. That's where this gasoline thing came from. And these guys, and it pains me greatly to say this, are as large a victim as we are when the gasoline prices approached almost $6, because they have to pay the prices. On another note, when the country, or Massachusetts, it was nationwide, wasn't it, the deregulation of electricity?
Not every state is deregulated. For instance, I believe Vermont is the only state in New England that's not,
Yeah.
but it has, many states have in the 90s.
The electric companies wholeheartedly supported deregulation at the time it took place. And now that it's here, but 60%, I don't know, I have a small business. And if I increased my prices, no matter what, I mean, the cost of the stuff I buy is going up, and I'm absorbing some of those costs. 60% is ridiculous. But the increases that natural gas is going up, projected to go up 75% in this country. This is from the producers. That's a good question. It isn't because we don't have enough. Yeah. It isn't because we don't have enough. It's the oil companies doing what they've done to us for a very, very long time. Since, huh? We do, correct. We don't have not enough. We have plenty,
Maybe
and it's being sold overseas.
I think this is all fantastic discussion, although a lot of this is outside of kind of National Grid's purview because we don't generate natural gas and we're not involved in the, wholesale market or transmission. So I'm happy to talk to anybody after this for as long as they want about these. We can have a coffee and shoot the breeze outside. But if we have kind of questions more in our purview, I'm happy to take those.
I have a question. Fortunately, this is not something we have to worry about, but there are a lot of people who will not be able to pay this bill no matter what. You could tell us all these things that you're saying, and people have wonderful questions. My one question to you, is anyone in our community going to be afraid that something is not going to be on because they couldn't pay the bill?
That is a great question. Let me preface that by a couple of things. One, for a little bit of peace of mind. In the winter time, so from November to April, we don't disconnect anybody in New England. We need that obviously because of the heating. It's not a luxury, it's a vital necessity. Any age. We don't disconnect anybody because it's, like I said, it wouldn't be fair. In terms of protections, so there's a few. If everybody in your home is over 65 and you show us a copy of a valid ID, we will give you protection. We will not disconnect your service regardless of the time of year. If there's an infant under 1, I believe is another protection. And I think you may need financial hardship paperwork along with that. But what I encourage you is that our goal is not to shut anybody off. That's the last resort option for us as a company. Everybody that works for the city and town has my number. If they have a resident that feels like they need, or they're in a specific circumstance that they need dedicated help, I'm happy to see what we can do above and beyond. But there are protections in place.
Right. You use the word last resort. There should be no resort for any utility to be shut off, and I want that on record from you.
No, I appreciate the comment.
All right, next question.
My question is, what company owns National Grid? And can you describe the financial relationship between Massachusetts National Grid and that parent company? What is the dependency, and what happens to our bills that we pay as far as it going to that parent company, which I know exists in Great Britain? Is that correct?
National Grid is an English-owned company. And we're National Grid here in Massachusetts and National Grid in England. The finances are a little bit more complicated because there's broken down depending on the regulations in terms of how we're required to keep things separate. But the business here in Massachusetts is run as a business in Massachusetts. So regardless of the financial implication of it, the decisions that are made that impact you are made here in Massachusetts. Steve Warner is our Massachusetts president. He runs all of our operations here. And we treat Massachusetts and New York as basically independent operating companies. But yes, we are part of a larger company that happens to be owned and operated in England.
And isn't it correct that that parent company's profits went up 50%, 2020 to 21, 50% profit increase?
Honestly,
Look it up on the internet.
I will look it up, but I can't answer that question because I'm not.
You should know that question. Your parent company is making 50% profit, and now you're coming to us, asking us to pay more for the service?
And let me point out, we are not asking anybody to pay more, right? Every single person in here has an opportunity to purchase their supply from any licensed supplier, period. Right now, you can choose an aggregation program that's offered by the city. You can choose one of the dozens of companies that are in Massachusetts that may call or email you or may show up at your door. However, if you didn't do that, we're required to purchase supply on your behalf, and we're required to do it in a certain way. And what that does is it means we have to go in 6-month chunks and buy it. Now, anybody that's going to go to the market right now and buy for the 6 months, unfortunately, these numbers are going to be astronomically high. So it is not, this money is not going to National Grid. This is a pass-through. There's no profit, there's no markup, but this is to pay for the price of electricity. So we're not collecting any additional money today or tomorrow or November 1st that we're collecting today. That's all flat.
I already passed it off, Jeanette, I'll come to you next.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I understand that the price of liquefied natural gas has gone through the ceiling. It's incredibly high. But pipeline gas is still, it looked to me, I looked at it recently, was under like a buck a therm. We pay a little more than that, but it's still pretty cheap, right?
It is, but
I also understand that the pipelines into the state they work at full capacity in the wintertime. But in the summer, there's plenty of natural gas capacity available from the sources and through the pipelines. Can't we store it during the summer so that we have more available in the winter? Or are we stuck with this liquefied natural gas? We're one of the only states in the country that's dependent on liquefied natural gas. How do we get off that? And I realize you are not in the position. I think it's ISO New England, they have the fiduciary responsibility to us, right? Cost, reliability, resilience, all of that.
So that question is really more for a company like, say, Enbridge that does gas transmission. We don't own those pipelines. We're just strictly a purchaser from them. I do know there is natural gas storage that exists. I'm not sure if it's in Massachusetts, but I know we do store it specifically to utilize at high-capacity events. And we have LNG facilities. There's one in Haverhill that we store year-round to try to help offset some of the price increase. But that question is really something that would have to be aimed at more of the transmission companies, unfortunately. But I don't disagree that something needs to be done to look at mitigating these cost increase.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to follow up on Elaine's question about anybody being shut off. So you said until May, nobody will be shut off. But people who have asthma or COPD or other things, a summer like this last one, they need air conditioning as desperately as they need heat in the winter. So the thought of maybe being shut off with a big bill in arrears going into that kind of summer is frightening. That's one question, Joe. If I may ask another one, can you tell us if we're with the consortium or abrogator, if we choose to go that route, do we have the same protection of not being shut off for whatever period, or is that just to National Grid?
The second part of your question is a great question. Both of them are actually. So as I mentioned before, there are protections in place for medical illnesses. People that you can get a letter from a doctor, and that letter trumps, our need to shut you off. Obviously, the health and safety of our customers is number one. We are also willing to work with anybody. If they can make even a partial payment, we can work out an agreement. As I know you mentioned, it's not a great terminology, but we don't want to shut people off, right? We don't make any money or anything if the meter's not spinning. As blunt as that sounds, it is not in anyone's best interest to be shut off. So we will work with them, and if they have a medical need, we certainly would take that into an account. In terms of if you go with a supplier or if you go with an aggregator, everything National Grid stays the same. We're still working on your lines. We're still delivering the power. All of the shut-off information would stay the same. Nothing really changes other than the fact that the power that you're using was purchased from somebody else. So all the above would stay the same.
All right, I'm going to have a couple more people ask questions, and then I'm going to bring Mark from Colonial Power up and have them do their presentation or their, what information they're going to share, because that might answer some of your questions. And then we'll come back to the Q&A, and everyone will get a chance to have their question asked, okay? But I'm going to take a couple more, and then we'll move on to do that.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Chabrier, and I appreciate your being here to explain these complicated matters to us. I'm sure it's going to take a while to digest. For me, I have several questions about how you buy supply. I understand that you are required to purchase in 6-month lots, but how much in advance, A, do you start looking? B, do you have a choice of suppliers that you use? And what are the restraints on those suppliers in terms of profits? Thank you.
So this is a question that I will admit I am not involved in the procurement, so I have a very high-level view of this process. However, I believe for this winter supply, we started in March, which unfortunately was right after the Ukraine war started. And we purchased 25% of our capacity in March and then 25% in June and the remaining 50% in September. In terms of the process, it's a competitive bidding process, and there are guidelines that are laid out by the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities of the way we have to follow. Of whether or not there's a profit restriction, I don't know, although it's a very good question, and I can get an answer and get back to you. I just don't have that. So if I'll either give you my card, or we can take your information from one of the people that we'll have in the lobby, and I'll get an answer to that, because I do think it's a great question.
Hi. I have a question about my bill. So if I look at my bill, there's two components on it. There's a whole number of line items that have to do with electric delivery.
Yes.
And then there's another item, usually on the back page, that's the actual cost of the actual power that I consume. However, on the first page, some of those items also are, some of them are fixed price, but some of them are proportional to the amount of electricity that I use. Okay, it's per kilowatt hour. So I'm wondering two things. One is, when the prices go up, are they going up only on the actual energy use and not on any of the delivery fees? And if they're going up on the delivery fees that are per kilowatt hour used, I'm trying to understand why that is, because the wires are there, the poles are there. They need to be maintained at the same fixed price no matter how much electricity I use.
So the everything in the delivery portion of your bill is staying the same. That is not going up at all. That's a totally different rate-making process through the Department of Public Utilities. The only thing that's changing is your supply, and that, again, is the cost of the electricity that we have to purchase on your behalf.
Can I just have a show of hands of who still has questions that they'd like to ask? Okay, just so I have an idea. We got one over here. All right, I'm going to take this one, and then we'll bring Colonial Power up.
Thank you for coming out here and standing before this grand audience. My name is Mary Delay. I live here in Newburyport, but I actually do climate and energy work for a neighboring small municipal light plant community, so they're in a different place. I guess I'm just curious about what you see as beyond this 6-month period, and what kinds of things you see happening or needing to happen for there to be some relief. I'm hearing about, transmission lines coming through Maine and people in Maine being upset about that, offshore wind. I do realize that as I make the decision today or tomorrow to switch energy suppliers, that a lot of those energy suppliers that are less expensive than 33+ cents per kilowatt hour for supply are actually using renewables, not natural gas. So we may find ourselves at that tipping point now, so I'm just curious about that.
That's a fantastic question, but also something that's incredibly difficult to answer. So I will say one thing, that I believe we are going to look into this basic service procurement process with the Attorney General and the DPU. They did an investigation list in 2015 when prices peaked at that time, to try to determine, is this process that we use, procuring energy in 6-month blocks, it's worked for the past 20 years. Is it still working today? Do we need to reconsider this? So I do think there will be talking about how we procure energy on your behalf. In terms of the future of the utility business and renewables and transmission lines, that's a whole another conversation with a host of answers to it. We have our own fossil-free vision that's around the heating of homes, and I'm happy to discuss that. But I just don't want to muddy the waters, because it's kind of an audience dedicated to this event. But I would be happy to, if maybe we can exchange cards and we can talk about it separately.
All right. Thank you, Joe. So I think at this time it'd be a good time to bring up Mark from Colonial Power. We'll let Mark talk, and then we will revisit, and then we'll get back into the Q&A, and we'll have National Grid stick around too, so they can still answer questions. And Molly Ettenborough, here. Thank you, Joe.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Capadona with Colonial Power Group. I'm the City of Newburyport's municipal aggregator, and I'm here to tell you that there's some good news, and I want to say there's some good news. So the city has already taken some protections to protect you from this spike. We're going to be going out to the market and seeing what there is to offer coming up. But the municipal aggregation program has some challenges just like National Grid does. So we're going to be going out at an extremely high-priced market, but having been in the marketplace the last week or so, I do expect there to be lower pricing than what you saw from National Grid. Everything the gentleman before me said is a true statement. National Grid is just procuring on your behalf because they're required to. They're not managing the process. They're just simply executing the process by the Department of Public Utilities. Agnostic of price, whether it's high or low, they're just going out in the days that they're told by the department. This allows us a lot more. So they go out 2 times a year for you, once in March and once in September. Municipal aggregation allows us to go out in the marketplace 210 trading days a year. So we have a lot more options than National Grid would actually have. So if we were looking in the marketplace right now, I expect it to be somewhere in the mid-20s to low 20s for a price. Is that a great price? Historically, it's a horrific price. Compared to 34 cents, it's a great price. But from a standpoint of historic electricity prices, it's a price that can deliver, right now, 30% savings. So that's a big deal compared to what National Grid has to offer. What does municipal aggregation mean to you? The good news about this program is it doesn't require you as a resident to do anything. Everyone that's on basic service would automatically be enrolled in the program. Before the program ever started, there would be a mailing that went out to each one of you, and you'd have a decision to make. Do I want to be in the program or do I not? If you did not want to be in the program, this is not third-party supply. This is a municipal program to benefit the residents. So you simply sign the card, put it back in the stamp addressed envelope, and you're out of the program. It's not a problem. You could call, you could go online. No one's going to try to hold you in this program. The city in this scenario is not taking a risk. They're taking all of their customers out, and they're going to find the lowest supplier that's willing to serve. That supplier would be the winning supplier and serve you for the amount of time the city chose for the next term. Given prices today, I don't expect to go out for a long term. It's just I've been doing this for 20 plus years, only municipal aggregation. I haven't seen prices like this ever in my life. And I'm not saying even close to this. This is historic what we're going through here. So what we're trying to do is just get a short-term contract to get us through, and then we'll get another contract right after that. Do you need to do anything to participate? If you're on basic service, no. If you're on third-party supply, what's the process required? So you're absolutely eligible for the program, but the Department of Public Utilities doesn't allow us to switch you. That would be what we would consider slamming, right? If we change you from if you had Constellation and we move you to the aggregation, you've already made a choice. That doesn't mean that you can't get out of your current supplier and then come to the aggregation program itself. The one thing we ask is make sure you touch base with your supplier so that you don't incur fees on top of that. So some of these third-party supply contracts have fees and penalties to get out of them. Most important that you call and make sure you're not subject to them. For the most part, I can tell you when you call, given the scenarios, most of them will forgive fees at this time. Most of them. If there's a problem, I'd like you to contact Molly or Colonial Power Group. I'm happy to call on your behalf. Normally, I know the right buzzwords to say to get you out of that contract without a fee or penalty. So from this standpoint, what actually happens? You're going to get a mailing. I'm just going to use a time frame. I'll say January the program was to start. In December, you'd get a mailing. If you don't do anything on your January meter read, you'd automatically be switched. So you'd start accruing at that lower rate, and then you'd see on your February bill that you're part of the City of Newburyport's aggregation with whoever the supplier might be. NextEra or Dynegy or any one of these suppliers bidding on the load for the city. Doesn't require you to do anything. Let's just say 3 months from then, National Grid comes back, let's call it 4 months. National Grid comes back with the price for their spring rate, and that rate is 13 cents, below what the rate is that the city had signed up for. What can you do? Simply opt out. There's no fee or penalty to do so. That's not a problem. Again, this is an aggregation program for the residents. Let's say the city signs another contract starting in November. Same issues exist today, will exist in November, high pricing next winter. You want to get back in the program. Those kind of things, simply call, go online, you can come back in the program. Those kind of issues aren't a problem. Third-party supply, and I want to mention this because I heard, so I'm fully behind National Grid, you can use the marketplace. This is not my data. This is the Attorney General said be very, very careful with third-party supply. About $426 million people have overpaid compared to basic service over the last 4 winters. So it's a substantial sum that if you're going to get out in the marketplace, just be careful. It's really buyer beware, and make sure whenever you sign something, you put it on your calendar that, hey, this contract ends in 12 months, circle the date and put it down, because it's not the original contract that's terrible. It's what happens to you when you don't remember that you had a contract. Prices begin to rise. So just be careful is all I'm saying. What the city is offering here is marketably different than what a third-party supply is. Let me explain. So right now, you and I and we're going to get bombarded with great deals. But I'm almost going to guarantee you what looks like a great deal today. A great deal today is going to be 16, 17 cents, but it's not going to be for 10 months. It's going to be for 36 months. And I'm in the idea that demand destruction is going to kind of change the whole perception of what's going on here this winter at 34 cents. I can't afford the electricity bill. So at the end of the day, I want you to be tremendously cautious about the shark-infested waters called third-party supply. That being said, municipal aggregation turns the table. The city of Newburyport's going to say to the supply community, what you can serve our citizens, free opt-out, ability to get back in, no fees, no penalty. If you don't want to serve it, no problem. But we are out on behalf of the citizens. It's not a supplier telling you, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and here in the small print, if you haven't read it, there's a $150 penalty to leave, and so forth and so on. That doesn't exist here. This is a consumer program that, again, we're in a volatile market, and I'm not saying that it's always going to deliver savings. It's not. I can tell you it will deliver savings out of the gate this winter. So I have to tip my cap. The city has done everything they needed to put this in place for a time just like this, and I believe that there'll be some opportunity here for the city to help out the residents, and that's what they've been trying to do the whole time. At this time, I just want to open it up to you for questions. I think it's most important that your questions get answered because there's a lot of misinformation out there. I don't know if the mayor is going to play Phil Donahue or... Oh, I don't mind listening.
Just repeat the question.
Check, check.
Electric companies, which I'm glad you really clarified that with folks. And I'm going to ask for a little Monday morning quarterbacking here, so I'm going to apologize. Newburyport's been approved by the state as a municipal aggregating community since January of 2016.
Correct.
We've yet to execute on a contract, unlike our neighbor, Salisbury, who has now entered their second at 11+ cents per kilowatt. I understand the up and down of the market, but I figured out on my own electricity usage this past year, if I was on Salisbury's, I would have saved $120 so far, without even be smart enough to jump out of it for the lower summer rates, which I would have been. But why haven't we executed? I mean, we were early in this to apply. I mean, we were ahead of the game here. But we should have been executing 2 or 3 years ago and had this as a backstop. And you can opt out. There's no penalty to do it. Like, what has stopped us?
So no, it's a great question.
And I don't mean to, I know it's Monday morning. We got to move forward. I get that, and I'm really happy to hear that we're going to have some savings. But where I feel like, we didn't have that backstop in place to save us. And I'm just curious, we were so upfront in the beginning, but then we didn't execute.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer the question. So for a while, the market has been very stable. So it's been in a what I'll call in a trading pattern somewhere between 12 and 10 cents somewhere. So every once in a while in the summer it was down around 9. But for the most part, there wasn't the savings or there wasn't a need for the city to move forward. We're looking to do some other things as well. So those issues, there was no spike at the time. I'm not saying there couldn't have been some savings and some stability. But overall, the decision was, hey, listen, right now there's not a lot of reason to make a move like this in case the market moved against them. So at this time, they felt like, hey, we have the loaded, how do I want to say it? I don't want to say loaded gun, but we have the ability to move forward now. And now we feel like we're going to be able to make the splash we've been looking to do.
And I agree with that. But, with the opt-out at no cost, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Now it does take communication though, and I understand that's time and money. I do, and making sure you get the message to everybody like, hey, maybe you should opt out right now. Prices are dropping for National Grid. And I'd be like, ooh, let's go. But I'm just, I think maybe this is a learning for the future.
Sure.
That even though we've got it loaded now, man, if we loaded it a year or two ago, we'd be getting it at 11 cents a kilowatt and not 20. So I guess it's more of a learning for all of us. I certainly have learned a lot getting my little, get my tassels up here because I was so irritated with it. And I've learned so much that I'm hoping in the future I can make better personal decisions on my electricity purchases. So thank you for answering that.
No, you're more than welcome. I appreciate the question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, in brief, those of us who have supplier contracts, like Constellation, whatever, do I just want you to clarify, it sounds like you're saying we don't need to worry about getting out of that in advance or anything, because I think mine renews, let's say, in November, but we'll have the opportunity if and when this aggregation happens. Is that correct?
That's a correct statement. I want to be clear one more time. When you go to remove yourself from that contract, you want to make sure there's no fee or penalty, but there's not a reason today for us to get up and running. We need to give 30 days. There's a whole bunch of lead time. So the earliest we could get this program started today is with your January meter read.
Any other questions? I'm going to just see if anyone else does, Mary, and then I'll come back. Okay. Oh, right here.
For those Newburyport homeowners who bought into the Nexamp solar program, is that a third-party supplier? And will everybody have to get out of that?
So Nextamp is not a third-party supplier. You're probably receiving basic service along with Nextamp. You would automatically be enrolled in the program.
Other questions?
Up here, Mr. Mayor.
I have one right here, and then I'll come back down, okay?
So is this a go-ahead thing? I mean, is this going to happen? As far as moving forward with the aggregator?
Absolutely. So we're going to bring pricing to your mayor very shortly, maybe as early as next week, and he's going to be making a decision on term and price and so forth. That would be, Mr. Mayor, I apologize for putting you on the hot seat here, but that would be your choice. Okay.
Okay, so we just have to follow your page to find out.
And again, as we talked about communication being so key, we'll be communicating that out to everybody as well. People who haven't asked yet, I just want to make sure I hit you first for questions.
Are we just talking about electric and not gas prices?
Unfortunately,
just electric.
It's only electric
Okay.
and it's only supply.
Right.
National
Okay.
Grid there'll still be a single bill, and it will still be National Grid, and they'll take care of the poles, the wires. There's literally no change on your side other than a single line item. Any program that you're in with National Grid, budget billing, low income, any of those things, farm discount, automatic withdrawal, all of that stays in place. Fantastic. National Grid does a fantastic job at all of that.
Any other questions down here?
3 or 4, Mr. Mayor.
sounds like a no-brainer, so how come everybody's not doing this? And what's the downside of doing it?
So, I mean, the knife cuts both ways. Let's say we signed a contract for 22 cents. And National Grid in May's price went down to 13 cents. So we'd have a tremendous amount of savings over that point, and then maybe we're giving a little bit of that savings back on the second half of the contract. You need to know that and opt out of the program. So you could be paying a little bit more. There's no, I want to make sure I'm clear as this in case the Department of Public Utilities sees it. We cannot guarantee savings, but it does give us an advantage compared to National Grid if we're managing that process. That is a correct statement. That is correct. So, fantastic question. Fantastic question. Every single bit of information will be on the Colonial Power website, which will also have a link from the city website. You'll always be able to see your current rate and click on a link below to National Grid's rate. If you go, we're paying the electricity futures market is correct, ma'am. Without any risk is all I'm saying to you. The supplier is taking the risk. The town does not have any financial risk at all in this program.
Is the program going to be able to support everybody in Newburyport who might want to switch over?
Yes.
Everyone can switch over, but then everyone can opt out too, so it's available to everybody.
Can't end the contract, but people will have choice.
Right. Just questions from people who haven't asked a question yet. I think you three did. I just want to make sure everyone had a chance to ask a question. Good.
Thank you. So I don't have any other company other than National Grid, so I understand that if we don't do anything, we'll be part of the Colonial Power aggregation starting January 1st, correct? So what about if I wanted to add solar power? How does that affect this whole situation?
So it won't affect. National Grid, again, takes care of that whole scenario. But I need to explain one thing about solar. So National Grid always makes it their credit on your bill for what is basic service. So this winter, say you have a solar array, their credits are going to be very lofty because their basic service price is extremely high. So that's a great thing, right? That's a great thing. But there could be a time, so you'd be paying 22 for supply, you'd be getting that 33.89 credit. Advantage, solar. The same, that knife cuts both ways. Next time we stay at 22, I'm just saying, if they did a long-term stable rate, you know, for the 10 months or what have you at 22 or whatever the number is, National Grid comes below that. You're now going to get a credit at, I think I used 13.5, but you'll be paying 22. So it's the same exact program, other than I consider it like it's on steroids because it's a little accentuated because you're always up against basic service. Does that make sense to you? If not, I'm more than happy to further explain to any of the solar net metering, smart customers that are out there. More than happy to. I stick around later on. We can talk about it all you want.
So one question I had was you were talking about the Colonial Power's rate. Is that a variable rate, or is it also fixed for the 6 months that National Grid is fixing it for? Is it going to go up and down? How long is that rate good for? And will we get that at the opt-in or opt-out time?
So you would absolutely get that information at the opt-in time. It would not be a variable rate. It would be something set for a fixed amount of time. So we could do a split rate. You could do something at, say, 22 or 25 cents, and then in the springtime bring it down to 12 or 13, or we could do something in the middle for the full 12 months. It's really dependent upon how we see the marketplace next week. So I just want to make one, it's not a Colonial Power aggregation. It's truly a City of Newburyport's aggregation, and I work on behalf of you. So we don't deliver the power. All we do is in the middle, we're going to go out to bid, and we're going to bring all of these prices. The mayor's going to look over all these prices and all these terms, and we're going to help him make that decision that's best for Newburyport.
So you're a broker?
At the end of it, I'm a broker. At the beginning of it, I'm a consultant.
Any other people who haven't asked a question yet that wants to ask a question before I get back to some of the people who...
There's two here.
I think they both asked questions. That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Mary, do you still want to ask one? Okay. I'm going to start with Mary, then I'm going to hit you two, okay?
I just want to put an exclamation point on her point about the city. I hope that we learned an important lesson, that the time to take advantage of these things is when the program starts, not when there's a problem, right? The part of the role of municipal government is to provide choices to its citizens, and municipal aggregation would have been another option, so I think that's important. I just also want to say, sitting here and picking up on a tone that I hope not everybody leaves with, which is don't trust the third-party suppliers. I agree with you that you have to read the fine print. I absolutely agree. But the fact of the matter is, if this is burdensome to you, you can go find a third-party supplier right now and check the terms, but you can get a 12-month contract with no fee at 21 cents a kilowatt hour. So don't be afraid to do that. It's easy. Go to energyswitchma.com. You can see what the different suppliers are, and you can pick that. So please, I just don't want you to scare people away from going with a third-party supplier as they wait for municipal aggregation to come potentially in January, but maybe not in January.
And I completely agree. That website you gave is a state-run website by the Department of Public Utilities. So it can be trusted. They are looking into those third-party suppliers. It's an excellent point, ma'am.
Hi, and I think you might have answered my question already. Will Newburyport's participation with Colonial Power make this a municipal power? I lived in Groton and...
No.
No.
So just so National Grid owns the poles and wires. In Groton, the town owns poles, wires, and everything. This is just taking over the supply portion of the bill, sir.
Bingo.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh.
Hi, I just want to make sure.
Sure.
You said that every citizen will get a letter and will get some sort of notification, and everybody will be eligible if they choose so.
If I said that, I misspoke. I want to make sure that I'm clear. Everybody that is on basic service with National Grid will receive this mailing. If you're with a third-party supply, you are eligible, but you won't receive the mailing.
And how would you know what's going on?
So it's going to be on the website, first off, and then two, I know there'll be all this information. We're going to have another information session just like this so that we can explain to everyone, this is the rate, this is the term, this is the supplier, here's the way it's going to work. I apologize, we're just a little front-running it, but we wanted to get here in front before people made some decisions that may or may not be harmful.
Okay.
I would say yes right off. We gotta wait.
So I have a related question, which is, if you do have a third-party supplier, as I do, should I be jumping ship now to get onto the basic service to simplify the process?
No. No, you should. I mean, I don't know what your rate is.
So I just have to keep my ears and eyes open and do better with social media, which I don't care for, in order to be well informed?
Correct. We're going to put something in the newspaper, ma'am, for certain. I don't know what your rate is for, I can tell you, starting November 1st, the rate is going to be 33.891. So if it's less than that with your competitive supplier, you want to stay with that competitive supplier until your January.
Until it's time to jump ship.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. Thank you. I really appreciate having this meeting today, and I'd just like to voice a request for the next meeting to be in the evening so that working folks can attend to.
100%. So I just said a meeting. I expect there to be numerous meetings. This is extremely well attended. I thought certainly something during the day, something else at night for the working group, and then maybe we do two of those. Yes.
Do we have different sites, perhaps one on Plum Island for Plum Island residents, and put them in different locations?
Yep. The answer is absolutely.
Any other questions? Right here.
Can you do this by Zoom as well for some people who can't get here?
Absolutely. Again, I want you to know, this is a municipal program for you. So we're going to do everything we can to get all the information out. It sounds like it's a very educated populace here that's looking for the information, so you're going to be able to find it. We're not going to hide this information by any means.
Also, I'll just say this meeting came up very quickly, so we do have NCM Hub here recording it so it can be viewed later. I think for future meetings, if we can get them in advance, then they will have the ability to broadcast them live too, so you could watch it either streaming on the internet or you could turn into Channel 9 as well. So we'll make sure we work on that for future meetings.
I apologize.
What was there a question over here? A quick one? Okay.
On an aggregation contract for 9 cents and change per kilowatt. Is that something similar to what we're doing? Is that not something that we, or is our, government buildings included with maybe another towns, and that's how you got such great pricing?
So it's a different load profile for the municipal buildings. They don't require a state or local process, so that they can aggregate their own buildings. Have been doing it successfully for years. No, it's one of the impetus
When they
for this
wrote
program.
that in the paper, I was like, wait a minute,
No,
like,
it's one of the reasons they started.
Our buildings in the town, we're saving our taxes through our bills there, but why didn't they just pop us on that too,
You wouldn't get the same rate.
Okay.
Because we have a residential load profile for this, and that's a commercial load profile.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
There's one up front here.
One up front. Two. Okay. She hasn't asked a question yet, so I'm going to let her answer.
I was quoted by a private energy or energy
Third party, yep.
company. Right, 18.69 for 36 months.
Yes, that's probably the going rate. And I'm going to say to you, for the winter, find out if there's an opt-out provision
$150.
at any time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much your usage is, ma'am, but there's some simple arithmetic you could do. Rather than pay the 34, you could pay the 18 for the winter and opt out, and you're probably going to be in the positive, even if you had to pay the fee.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. I'm almost going to guarantee you later on, if you stay on it, you're going to pay more. But for this coming winter, the savings is tremendous. I only know the price for national, the benchmark is 34. But if in in May, when the new rate comes out and that's 13 and you're still paying 17, and if next winter the rate was, something that we're used to again, something 12, 13, 14 cents, you'll still be over. The following summer, you'll be over. 100%. And you'll also, the good thing about this, you'll not only have basic service, you'll also have a city program. All of it choice that you don't currently have. Yes, sir.
So if I have Constellation as my supplier, I will not get a communication in the mail about this program?
That's a correct statement. You will not get we are not allowed to get that information, unfortunately, sir.
So I just have to watch the website.
Watch the website, the newspaper. It's going to be, on the city council and all of that.
Yeah, I think we've really tried to get communications out to residents in as many different ways as possible, but that's why I kind of mentioned at the beginning, sign up for those alerts. The minute we ever put anything on the website, you'll get an email, you'll get a text. There's different ways that we can send information out to you. It doesn't have to be social media, but just, again, I think signing up for those will just always keep you in the loop going forward. And you can always jump on the city website at cityofnewburyport.com, and usually it's that very front page that will have the latest, greatest news going on.
So I'm wondering why the city chose you.
So it was done through a regional procurement.
I thought she was asking me that question. Go ahead.
It was done. Oh, absolutely. It was done through a regional procurement. Merrimack Valley chose Colonial Power Group, so a lot of the communities here in Merrimack Valley are using Colonial Power Group. Haverhill, North Andover, Amesbury, Scituate, Salisbury, Newburyport. Yep. As a fact, Newbury just called us just the other day.
So you've got a good record.
Yes. Happy to give you any of the information. You can call any of the people we work with. You could ask Molly. I think she thinks we're doing okay.
I think so too. I just wanted to.
Oh, fully. Great question.
Yeah.
Last call for questions. Richard, you're one.
So just a quick question. Is Colonial Power negotiating a municipal aggregation contract only for Newburyport, or are there 5 towns that you're negotiating with at the same time? And if you're negotiating different contracts for different communities, who wins? Who has the best rates at a given time?
So this is truly an electricity question, so it's really going to come down to your load profile. I can tell you that Newburyport at this time is only going to go out by themselves. And I know most people here are going to say, oh, the Walmart effect, right? If I have more communities and so forth, we all go out together, we're going to get a better price. Well, I'm going to tell you, National Grid has probably the biggest aggregation of all. So that theory for a commodity doesn't actually work. So it really comes down to your load profile when we get out there and how we're able to get pricing for that. We're going to run a competitive bid. 4 or 5 suppliers will bid on your load. We'll show that all to the city, and the city will make a decision on a multitude of factors here: time, rate, quality of supply, so forth. Not that the supply is different, but the credit itself behind it. Constellation has a big balance sheet, someone else may not. Someone else might be AAA rated where someone else may be only single A rated. All of those things go into the what I'll call the cake, and then we show everyone and explain at the city level what it is we're trying to get to. Again, we are in the market all day, every day. This is my business. This is how I feed my children. So I just want you to know I'm out here working for you because that's how we make money. So you don't know about the electricity markets because it's so opaque. We know exactly what we're looking at and what we're seeing in the marketplace. It's what we do all day, every day. You're welcome.
Last call for questions. Oh, we have one over here. And I will just say after this, Colonial and National Grid will stick around for a little bit. So if you didn't feel comfortable asking a question, feel free to talk to some of the representatives in the lobby, and we'll get your questions answered.
Are we able to change between the basic and your program, like every month, whoever has the best deal? And is it easy, and does it cost anything?
If you wanted to, you certainly could. I would say this: you don't need every month. It would just be every 6-month term, ma'am. Right? So the basic service changes in November and then again in May. So you'd just be having to change those 2 times.
All right, I think that's it. I don't see. Oh, do you have another question over here? Oh, sorry.
It's fine.
So my question to you is, so are we going to have to be doing this, every 6 months is what I'm saying. And I understand that, your prices could be higher than National Grid. I do understand that part of it. But in other words, is it going to even itself off? Or is it like, say, your prices are higher, their prices are lower? Is it going to even itself off for eventually? I mean, I think that's my question.
So we're going to use the marketplace to your advantage. Okay. So right now, given the lofty pricing, I just don't think the long-term deals are a great idea. And that's why you're seeing third-party suppliers offer them. Because, yep, there's some savings here in the front end, but what's going to happen on the back end of the curve, that's different.
Exactly.
Now, at a different time in the marketplace, just 18 months ago, we're at historic lows in pricing. I would have said, let's take 36, 48, 50 months. But right now, we're in a completely different time, so I'm just going to take a small chunk right now.
So what if you're in it and, you go in it to begin with?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, your prices go way up and you want to opt out. If you do that, then you can't opt back in again. Is that correct?
You can opt back in.
Oh, you can?
Yes, you can.
You could bounce back and forth if you decide you want to do that.
That is correct.
Okay, and there'd be no fees. Okay.
There is no fee or penalty. That's
Okay.
correct.
That was my question.
Yep, not a problem.
Last call, questions? Everyone's good? Well, great. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out. This is a great turnout. A big hand for Colonial Power and National Grid for coming up here answering questions. I mean, bottom line, there's a lot of questions still out there. We're going to send out more information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to City Hall. We're happy to meet with you and answer any questions you have. And again, bottom line is we're going to do whatever we can to help residents. So thanks again, and stay tuned for some more information.
This is very informative, very helpful. This is my husband. He wants to get your consult.
I have a card just in case.